So lately, I've been trying to tell you guys about Bernie-crats. These are down-ticket progressives just like Bernie Sanders who are anti-establishment and are running to try to change the party. So I told you about Tim Canova and others. I haven't gotten to all of them, but I've got a new one for you guys that's pretty exciting. So Alex Law is a progressive Democrat running for Congress, and he's been on the campaign trail for 18 months. Now, even before Bernie Sanders made it a thing, Alex decided only to raise funds from small donors. He doesn't have a super PAC and isn't taking money from any corporations. Now, his campaign has knocked on more than 50,000 doors, and he's knocked on over 10,000 doors himself. So he's given his establishment opponent a run for his money. Now, if elected, Alex Law would be a game changer for the Democratic Party, and his campaign is very important for our political revolution. So I was excited to have the opportunity to actually speak with Alex about his campaign. So Alex, if you can go ahead and tell my viewers a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run for Congress at such a young age.
Well, thank you for having me on the Humanist Report. Huge fan of the program.
Thanks, man.
And this campaign, it really started in a very small, humble way where some friends and I were sitting watching the news. At the time, Congress was at a total standstill. And we didn't like what we saw. And we looked locally at the corruption and the graft and the cronyism, which I'm sure we'll get into here in South Jersey. And we didn't like that either. So we said, you know what? Rather than complaining about what was happening in our government, we said, why don't we do something about it? So we put together some policy. We made a quick website, not as nice as the one we have now, which is alexlawforcongress.com. And we printed up some flyers, not as nice as the ones we have now. And we just went out and started knocking on doors. And from that very small start, we now have knocked on over 50,000 doors, made over 50,000 phone calls, have 120 volunteers, a wonderful campaign headquarters, and really think we're going to be in an excellent position to accomplish something historic here on June 7th.
Now, to kind of follow up there, so when you guys say you've knocked on thousands of doors, this isn't just, a group of volunteers and you're just kind of sitting behind the scenes. You've knocked on almost 10,000 doors yourself. Is that correct?
That is correct. So I've knocked on now this week. I crossed the 10,000 door threshold. I also crossed the 1,000 miles of door knocking threshold in the last 8 months. So I'm personally out there on the front lines with my team knocking on doors. Just today, I spent about 2 hours knocking on doors in a small town called Haddon Heights, talked to a bunch of wonderful people. And the amazing thing is, in this district, in this election, my opponent is tremendously unpopular. And about 95% of the people that I talk with are extremely excited about our campaign, the fact that they have a real Democratic alternative to this Democrat that had been representing them, that has voted with Republicans more than any Democrat in the state of New Jersey, that's taken over $10,000 from Donald Trump to fund his campaign. They're excited about us. So our challenge isn't convincing people. Our challenge is making sure that we reach enough people, and we're going to work as hard as we can to do that.
Now, I want to ask you the easiest question that you're going to get so far.
Okay.
So, and I'm going to give you more time for this one because you're going to have a lot to say, I'm assuming. So, when it comes to your opponent, Donald Norcross, can you just explain why you're better than him?
So, Mr. Norcross, he's part of a family, the Norcross family, that has created a political machine here in South Jersey. Really the epitome of everything that Bernie Sanders is running against. People that exist because of big money in politics, because of pay to play, because of cronyism and graft and corruption. And he has been basically appointed to every office that he's had. Mr. Norcross, since he's been in Congress, has voted with Republicans, like I mentioned, more than any Democrat in the state of New Jersey, almost combined, with huge votes with Republicans on things like the Keystone Pipeline, like expanding defense contracts for his campaign donors like Lockheed Martin, going against the president on the Iran deal, going against the president on the refugee bill, which I think really speaks to who we are as a nation. So he's been tremendously disappointing. And what I would say, too, is his machine, this political organization, right here in South Jersey, the 1st District, it's the only place in the United States of America, the only place that since I've been alive has not had a single bill that's become a law written by a representative of the 1st District. It's the only place. And although Mr. Norcross has only been in there for 1 term, hopefully his last term, the previous congressman, Rob Andrews, was part of that machine. He was actually asked to leave Congress because of corruption allegations. So this is something that we're very familiar with here in South Jersey, something that I think South Jersey has been waiting for someone to fight back against it in a meaningful way, and that's what this campaign is doing.
One thing that has been a consistent trend with the new generation of progressive Democrats like yourself and Tim Canova and Bernie Sanders is that the DNC is doing everything they can to shut down your guys' campaigns. So, as all my viewers know, I reported on this. Tim Canova's access to Van was cut off. And also, this same thing happened to you last year as well. And also, there's some issues with the ballot in your state. So I just want to ask, do you think that the Democratic establishment in New Jersey is trying to suppress your campaign? And if so, how has this been the case?
Well, 100%. Look, the establishment is not does not like when a young person with good ideas, passionate, positive politics comes on the scene and says, you know what, I'm not going to play the political machine game. I'm going to get in there and actually try to help people, put people first. Because a fundamental idea in our campaign is something that Teddy Roosevelt said a long time ago. He said, when we rule ourselves, we have the responsibility of sovereigns, not of subjects. And we really firmly believe that we, all of us coming together, are really saying enough is enough. And that's what Bernie Sanders' campaign, I think, has fundamentally been about. Now, here in New Jersey, how have they been trying to make it difficult for us? Well, yes, as a lot of people have been outraged about what's going on with Tim in Florida, and I've spoken with Tim's campaign, and we've been helping him with some of the solutions that we've come up with, in that this happened to us over a year ago. We were the first person to endorse Bernie Sanders that was running for federal office. We were on the scene first, and New Jersey's Democratic Committee denied us access to the van. And our wonderful supporters, people like are in your audience, called them hundreds of times, probably thousands of times, forced them to give us an answer, because at first they were just ignoring us, refusing to either deny or not or give it to us. And because of this enormous commotion that we created online and with phone calls, the CEO of Nation Builder, the CEO of another company called L2 reached out, and they set us up with L2, which is a wonderful data company that actually offers the same thing as Van, except a little better in my opinion. So we've been using that for our data solutions, which has been great. Now, you mentioned the ballot issue. Now, this is a huge thing. And this is something, by the way, that I know a lot of your viewers are fans of Bernie Sanders. The work that we've been doing around this ballot issue, which I'm about to describe, has alerted Bernie Sanders to a huge vulnerability that he has here in New Jersey. And because of the work that we're doing, because of the money we put into the lawsuit that is currently active against the clerks here in New Jersey, his campaign has been made aware of some secret rules that would have put him in a very unfavorable ballot position. So let me explain it as quickly as I can, because it's about as unsexy of a topic as there is, but it's actually fundamental to our democracy. So you have your ballot in New Jersey. Unlike a lot of other places, you have the people, the office in rows, and then the people's names out in the columns. So what happens is they were doing, I found out that the machine, the establishment, had won the random drawing for column 1, the most important column, every year since we could find records for it. So I said, how is that mathematically possible? Yes, not every year did they have a challenger, but many years they did. How could they win every single time? So and all of this is outlined in detail on alexlawforcongress.com. Now, eventually we basically found out that they have 3 separate drawings for 3 separate classes of candidates. Now, none of these rules are public. They don't let anyone know how this procedure works, what forms, anything, nothing. All of it is secret. And to me, it really feels like, the book Animal Farm. All animals are equal, except for pigs are more equal. And it revolves around something that we have here in New Jersey called freeholders, which are the county officers, and people that are bracketed with freeholder candidates go into drawing number 1, and then other freeholder candidates go into drawing number 2, and then everyone else goes out into drawing number 3, including Bernie, if he doesn't get freeholder candidates, which we're working with now to make sure he has freeholder candidates in every county in New Jersey, to compel these clerks to put us into column 1. So they have been obstructionists every which way, from local Democrats clubs making up and hiding their rules, to the clerk with the ballot, to the van. But we're persevering. Quite honestly, we've been ahead of the Norcross campaign every step of the way here in New Jersey. And we think we're ahead right now coming into June 7th.
For all of my viewers who don't really know the importance of ballots, see, your positioning on a ballot sometimes can make or break your campaign. Individuals will vote based on ballot positioning. So if you're just
all the time
by it, ballot, it's just terrible. So this is fundamental. It's make or break. So this is why this is so important for Alex and Bernie Sanders. So getting on the topic of Bernie Sanders, so seeing that most of my viewers are familiar with Bernie Sanders, I figured it would be a good idea to kind of discuss your policy positions, just a general overview, and how they relate to Bernie Sanders, or maybe how they're different. Can you just kind of give us the rundown? Because you're a true progressive.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. Like I said, we endorsed Bernie on day one. We were the first ones in New Jersey to do it, something I was very excited, very proud to do. And this was well before his rise in the polls and people sort of rallying to his wonderful campaign. At the beginning, it just came down to a very simple idea that he, unlike Hillary Clinton, walks the walk to his talk of campaign finance reform. And I think that quite possibly could be the biggest issue facing our democracy right now, making sure that our democracy is no longer for sale, and that we have meaningful policy put in place to address campaign finance reform. So Bernie and I are very similar, almost across the board. People ask me, oh, well, where are you different than Bernie? Hard to say, maybe some finer points. And by the way, we probably have more policy on our website than anyone else running for Congress.
You absolutely do.
We have a tremendous amount of, because most politicians, quite honestly, they don't want to put their policy out there because they don't want to be questioned on it. They might not understand it themselves. It might have been an intern or a staffer that wrote it. With my team, I wrote every single piece of the information that's on the website. I live and breathe this stuff. I love politics. I love policy solutions. And we have a ton up there. And I think a lot of it you'll agree with. We talk a lot about the idea of student loan reform, how important it is. Because right now our banks are borrowing at less than 1%. Our students are borrowing at upwards of 12%. So we're turning our banks into charities and our students into profit centers. This is not okay. I gave a talk just a week ago, and a young man stood up and he said, Alex, I've been paying my student loans for 10 years. I haven't paid a penny of principal yet. And that's just, it's crushing. Generations of people are being saddled with debt that they have no bankruptcy protection for. Absolutely horrible. We can reform that. We talk a lot about the incarceration issue that we have in the United States. We have a creed, an American creed that says the land of the free, but the American deed does not match the American creed, and that we imprison more people than any country in the history of the world. And disproportionately, it's young African-American males. So we can address that by getting rid of the horrific, ridiculous, horrible, every piece of empirical evidence shows it doesn't work, mandatory minimums. We can legalize things like marijuana, change our idea of how we deal with drugs in our society from punishing, which does not work. It's proven it doesn't work. It's almost been proven at this point that it was a Nixon-era policy to repress African-American and minority voting. To treatment. So if people have a problem with whatever kind of substance, rather than throwing them in jail, they get out in 60 days to go right back to the place where they had problems. We deal with it with treatment. So from issues like that to sustainable energy. Look, Morocco, wonderful country. No reason that Morocco should have the biggest solar plant in the world. The United States should be leading the world in this kind of technology. Becomes a net export for us, becomes a job creation source. So we talk about a lot of policy. Those are a couple big ones that I talk about often, but happy to answer any questions that you have.
Sure. So I think that everything that you said encapsulates why you're important, or your campaign, excuse me, is so important, not just for the 1st District of New Jersey, but for the entire United States. Like, for example, I'm someone who has a tremendous amount of student loan debt. So if you get in Congress, you can produce policies and be part of policies that will help me as well. And this is the same thing for all of my viewers. So this isn't just important for New Jersey. I mean, this is a political revolution. This is nationwide. And I'll tell you, the biggest thing that I love about your campaign is that you do not take corporate money. So I kind of want to get into the specifics of campaign finance. So I know you support campaign finance reform, but can you speak to the specifics on that? Do you support public funding of elections? Like, what is your ideal goal for that?
Well, I think first we got to get the untraceable dark money out of politics. Unfortunately, that will probably require a constitutional amendment, which at soonest would be 2 years away. But we shouldn't be discouraged, because there is major things that we can do right now without that constitutional amendment. The first thing being comprehensive pay-to-play legislation. And what I mean by that, when a business has government contracts in an area, they should not be allowed to contribute to the politicians that control those contracts. And we talk about campaign finance reform on the macro, big national level, but the reality is our democracy is bought and sold every day on Main Street in the small town that you live in because of pay-to-play politics. And we can address that right now We can address it on a national level, federal, congressional act. We can address it at a state level. We can address it at a county level. We can even address it on a town level. And some towns across the country have already started to do that. A great organization to check out about policy that is starting to be implemented in small towns across the United States is represent.us. And they've been working with people, getting them educated on how to do this to make sure that your town does not have that kind of pay-to-play politics in it. So I think that's something that we can do right away to solve those problems.
That sounds fantastic. So one thing that I want to talk about is climate change. So you are someone who I can trust will get into Congress and actually fight for to stop climate change, because you're not taking money from the fossil fuel industries. And that's not the case with progressives who like to get things done, like Hillary Clinton. So I can trust that you will actually do something about it. But when you get in there, what can you do to really galvanize support within Congress? How do you plan to take on climate change?
Well, so there's a couple questions in there. The first thing I want to tell you guys, and this is something that I think a lot of your viewers will be interested in. We've spent just about zero time talking to rich people about donations. Our campaign has been entirely 100% funded by small donations, by people being compelled to come to our website, like what they see, giving us money. Our campaign, right? You look at how much congressional campaigns cost: $1 million, $500,000, $2 million, whatever. We're going to run this campaign for less than $60,000. And we're going to prove that this model of low dollars, high people, high volunteer engagement, high in-person talking to voters can work. And then we're going to teach people all across the country how to do it. So on top of the policy solutions that we'd like to see to get big money out of politics, we're going to show people how to compete without those kind of big dollars. And we're doing it right here against the most well-funded Democrat in the entire state of New Jersey, and we're winning. So we're going to do that, and it's powered by people like you coming on over and giving us 10, 20 bucks, because every one of those donations allows us to go knock on more doors, talk to more voters. Okay, so now let's get to climate change and that entire issue. Look, there are Democrats in Congress like my opponent who take money from Exxon, and then when the vote comes up, the Democrats were sure that they were going to vote against the Keystone Pipeline or vote for major EPA increases to make sure that there aren't the kind of emissions that are ruining our planet. And then they turn our backs on us because of the campaign contributions. We got to get those people out of there. We need to make sure that people are in Congress that not only understand that this is a moral imperative, which it is, and I think most progressives, if not 100% of them, agree with that, but understand that sustainable energy, that smart environmental policy is an economic imperative for the United States. We have an opportunity to lead the world in technology that virtually every country on earth needs. And we're turning our back on that. The way I explain it to people is, look, if you have two assets, asset A, asset B, no matter how much money you pour into asset A, it's going to keep getting more expensive. And then you have asset B. Every dollar you put into asset B gets less expensive for you to buy. Everyone picks asset B. But yet for some reason as a nation, we're picking asset A. And the reason, of course, is Exxon and lobbying and all that kind of stuff. So we got to change that culture.
You bring up so many good points. One thing I kind of want to get back to is when you talked about how your campaign is being run with about $60,000. This is a brand new model, because everybody makes the assumption that if you want to get into politics, if you want to run for office, well, you better cozy up with the corporations and, you know, the millionaires and the billionaires. Otherwise, you can't get in. That's not the case. You've proven otherwise. Like, you have changed the game.
Well, hopefully, and you know, right now people are looking to us as sort of the experiment, right? And
right,
honestly, win or lose, this election's going to be close. This model will work, but we need to win this election. We need to get over that final push, this final sprint, so that we can prove that this model works and take it all across the country. Teach young people, teach progressives everywhere how to make sure that you can have a voice in politics, even if you don't have rich parents, because I don't, even if you don't have a network of rich donors, because I don't, nor do I think you should need that to be a part of this democracy. Look, if you have 2 feet and a voice and you're willing to work hard and go talk to people, you should be able to have a say in our democracy and have a real chance to be in elected office. And that's what we're trying to put together with extremely smart data analytics, data targeting. We are as efficient as possible in the voters that we're targeting, and that comes from our L2 data, which, back to the Tim Canova controversy, the controversy I dealt with the van, having data is extremely important, but there are other places you can get it besides the van. And combining that kind of new age data targeting with old-fashioned retail politics, volunteers getting out to vote, talking to people at their doorsteps, at festivals, on the phone. Combining the two, you can do it for very cheap. You just got to have a good team and a good plan in place, and we think we have that.
That's absolutely amazing. Okay, so I want to kind of get into foreign policy now. This is a seemingly infinite issue, so we don't have to get too deep into the details, but I think if I ask you a yes or no question, it'll tell us almost everything we need to know about your foreign policy. Okay. So do you think that the United States should be the world's police?
That really is a tough question. I don't know if that's necessarily yes or no. If pushed, I would say no. But I do think the United States should be part of a coalition of nations that acts to make sure that there is some stabilization in the world. And I think the Obama administration has done a great job with that in certain respects, in how it used diplomacy in the Iran nuclear deal rather than weapons, rather than drones, in order to solve a world problem. Where I think the Obama administration has fallen short is with ramping up our drone strikes program, which just seems like an incredibly it just seems like a horrible thing. Like if I was in New Jersey and there was some country flying drones around, I couldn't see it. Occasionally my neighbor's house blew up. With no education, I would hate whatever country did that. It didn't matter what I learned about them, how good they may or may not be. I would hate them. And we're, I think, in a lot of ways, helping with the radicalization of Islam, the spread of Wahhabism in the Middle East. And I think we need to change our policy with that. More things like how we behaved with the Iran deal, less like how we destabilize Syria or our drone strikes all over the Middle East.
Very few people actually know that Obama actually did ramp up the drone strikes when he came into office. And so we kind of endow these democratic leaders with our trust, when in actuality, we don't really know what's going on. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. So getting to another issue that I think is really important is institutional racism. So can you talk about some of the specific policies that you would implement to combat police brutality against minority communities?
Well, I think, like I mentioned earlier, the legalization of some entry-level drugs is very important, because these are the kind of infractions that are being used by law enforcement all across the country to institutionalize young African-American, young Latino males, and then they are limited in their opportunities for the rest of their lives. Changing that, I think, overnight will dramatically improve the situation that we have with incarceration and institutional racism in law enforcement. I also think it's important that we implement more of a community policing model. So I think a lot of places are moving more towards a militaristic policing model, more intense equipment, more rigorous physical training, more by the letter of the law, arrests, mandatory minimums kind of stuff. Where I think community policing is actually much more important, where the only time you see a police officer isn't, when they pull you over, when they arrest you, but in schools and at community festivals, and making the police part of the community so that you feel comfortable engaging with and being a part and having police around, rather than them just patrolling the streets, pulling people over, arresting people. I think that kind of community model is very important. And right here in South Jersey, I'm very proud that we have Steve Kelly, who's a police union chief, very progressive person, Bernie supporter, who's running for freeholder on my ticket, who is leading the way with our thoughts and our policies on law enforcement.
Excellent. Okay, so I won't take up too much more of your time, because I know you're going to go knock on some more doors right after this, because you don't quit. Your campaign's great. That's so right. Can you just tell my viewers how we can support you if we don't live in your district, if we're not from New Jersey? What can we do outside the state to help you out?
Well, okay, so there's two ways, right? There's always two ways people can help. You can contribute, and I hope that you do consider to do that, whether it's $2, $20, $100, whatever you have. I promise you we will put it to good use here. Our campaign is efficient, and every dollar you give us goes straight into our grassroots efforts. So you can do that at alexlawforcongress.com. You can always find us on Twitter at AlexLawNJ, Facebook, AlexLawNJ, and interact with and share our stuff on there, which always helps us reach more and more people. But if you're short on money, I know everyone in the Bernie revolution is giving to Bernie, is giving to other progressive politicians, and I understand it. If that money's already been spoken for, I do hope you'll still contribute to us, but if it's already spoken for, that's okay. We've created something called callsforalex.com. And you can get to that through our normal website, alexlawforcongress.com, or just go straight to callsforalex.com. And anyone, anywhere in the country can sign up there and make phone calls for us to Democrats here in the 1st District. And I want to tell you how important that will be. This election in our district, there is 174,000 Democrats. In the last election, Mr. Norcross, for all his power and money and influence, he got 18,000 votes. In this election, because of how close it's going to be, how competitive it's going to be, even in a presidential year, the winner will likely get between 15 and 17,000 votes. So you, wherever you are, Kentucky, Iowa, California, Texas, anywhere in the country, you can make a difference by making phone calls for us. If you call 10 people a week between now and June 7th, the work that you do could very well change this election and make sure that we get another progressive in Congress. So you can do that at callsforalex.com. And finally, if you are in New Jersey or in Philadelphia or in Delaware, we lead groups of new volunteers out to knock on doors every Saturday. So you can go to our website, send us a message. We'll get you set up with that. If you want training for how to knock on doors, to do it for Bernie where you are, or you just want to come and help with us, or whatever it is, we train new volunteers on how to knock on doors the correct way with good data, with good literature, good training. We do that every Saturday. We take out a group of people. So you can go to our website and shoot us a message and let us know you want to be a part of that. So however you can help, please do it. This election is very important, and we're going to work as hard as we possibly can to make sure that we have another progressive in Congress.
All right, so you guys heard it right there from the man himself, future Congressman Alex Law. Go and donate. If you're in District 1 of New Jersey, it's not even a question. Get out there and vote.
Get out there and vote. That's right.
Get out there and vote. Stay however long it takes. Bring a lunch, because we got to get this done. This is the progressive revolution. It starts in your hometown. So, Alex, thank you so much for being on the program, man.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
So if you like what you heard, then please sign up to Phone Bank for Alex. If you have anything to donate, please do that. Any little penny helps, because he's going up against a powerful political machine, and whatever you can do to help out Alex will be much appreciated. So we've got to help other Bernie-crats, and he's certainly one that's very important.